Good evening. It is Wednesday, November 1st, 2023, and coming to you from the Lonely Tree Media Studios in Yakima, Washington, this is the Best Lamb Sports Show, which doesn't have music. I mean, it's normal, right? So, I'm your host, David Lamb. With me is my son, Parker. Say hello, Parker.
Hello, Parker. That was really funny.
I mean,
I know it wasn't wildly intentional, but it was hilarious.
yeah. Okay. It happens, though. I mean, it's just what, I mean, sometimes, we get technical glitches. We haven't really had very many lately.
No, it's
No.
been strangely smooth
It's
sailing.
less exciting, actually.
Actually, probably right now, no one's hearing this because it's not going or something like that.
I'm sure
It's having the issue now while we're talking about it.
Yeah, the issue's happening now. What you're seeing is now. All right. So, yeah, we're we're on YouTube under the Best Lamb Sports Show. We're on Facebook. Also, just type in the Best Lamb Sports Show. You'll find it. And you can send us an email, lambsports@gmail.com, and check out the website, which is lambsports.com as well. And let's see. We want to start by saying that Bob Knight, the sixth winningest coach in Division I men's college basketball history, Hall of Famer, 3 national titles in Indiana, 1 undefeated season, and countless on-court outbursts. He died Wednesday, according to his family. He was 83. Apparently, nothing, just natural causes. So anyway, he became a head coach in 1965 at Army at the age of 24. He wasn't his head coach, but he was an assistant coach, which is pretty darn young. Anyway, I'm just saying. At Indiana, he had a school record 661 games won, right, reaching the NCAA tournament 24 times in 29 seasons. And then in 1976, they went unbeaten. He was the U.S. Olympic team head coach in 1984, the team that won the gold medal in Los Angeles. Anyway, so his career record in coaching: 902 wins, 371 losses. So there you go. But he's one of the best coaches I've ever seen, fiery or not. I loved watching the anger come out too.
Is there a reason why he stopped going by Bobby?
I mean, you get to a certain age where Bobby just doesn't work anymore, I guess. I don't know.
I suppose. It said, it popped up on my face, says it just says Bob Knight did whatever, and I was like, Bob Knight. Do they mean Bobby Knight? And
Yeah.
so then I looked it up, and it was sure enough, it's everywhere I see the picture of him. I'm like, okay, yeah, that's definitely Bobby Knight. And then I'm like, is Bobby just redacted? Like, does nobody call him that anymore?
No, I think he just stopped. I mean, I don't know if people just stopped doing it or if he asked for it, but anyway,
He grew up or something.
yeah. So anyway, yeah. So sad day in basketball, but he's a legend. So I don't think you'll find many coaches as good as him. Um, Mike Krzyzewski's on that list, right? And that's about it. Dean Smith.
Dean Smith, yeah.
So anyway, let's move on. We were actually going to talk about the World Series because the World Series is going right now. We're at Game 5 tonight. The first pitch I think is on Fox at 5:03 p.m. Pacific, 6:03 where you are. Rangers took a 3-1 lead in the series. Pretty much a stranglehold on the series last night with an 11-7 victory. It's of the teams that have been up 3-1. This has happened 48 times. This is the 48th time, I should say. Of the previous 47, 41 of them won that series. 26 of those won it in Game 5. So odds are pretty heavy that this is going to be over tonight.
Yeah.
Which brings the question up because what I read was that the games 2 and 3 of this series were the least watched World Series games in history. And I don't know if that has to do with market. Texas is, Dallas, right? They play in Arlington. It's the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And Arizona is Phoenix. Those are some pretty big markets. But what you've left out is the West Coast and the East Coast, right? Completely. And the Midwest, where you have all of the Detroit, Milwaukee, Chicago that area. Those teams are probably not. I mean, those fans are probably not super interested in this particular series. But you also have two teams that combined for 174 wins this year. The Diamondbacks had tied for the worst record to make the playoffs this year at 84 and 78.
Well, and you left out like it's missing what I call heritage teams. Now the Rangers are a good team, a big team, and the Diamondbacks have a following, especially winning in 2001. But there have been so many, like over the last however many years, there
Yeah,
have been the Giants
yeah,
in and out, right? The Dodgers in and out, the Red Sox, the Braves, the Yankees, like the teams that have like the big names attached to them,
yeah.
like not necessarily named players, but like just the program itself.
The following.
And I feel like these two teams just don't have that same clout.
Well, the Rangers definitely don't. They've never won a title, so this would be their first.
Right. Although they did play for two back to back in 10 and 11.
Yeah, it's true. I think that
But
was
it's been 13 years since they've made noise.
right. Was that still A-Rod days, or was that? I mean, I don't remember if it was Alex Rodriguez back then or not. It's been a while. He's been retired a little while, so I don't know. But yeah, the Diamondbacks have already won one, so
Yep.
against the Yankees. So that was a really exciting series to watch too. But that was also Randy Johnson and company. Different kind of team, but anyway, 84 wins. Lots being said about the playoff format. The 7 teams that are in, each league gets 7 teams in instead of, I mean, let's be honest, should be just one. But each league gets because they want to have all these playoff rounds, and then the playoff rounds all are different. The initial series is 2 out of 3 games for those wild card teams, and then it's 3 out of 5 for the divisional, and then it's 4 out of 7 for the league championships and the World Series. I don't know why they do that. Why they shorten them so much? Because let's admit it, a 2 out of 3 game series, you can lose 2 games pretty easily, right? Or lose 2 out of 3, but not lose all 7 or lose out in a 7-game series because you are the better team, right? Your depth doesn't have a chance to show, like in your pitching staff and that, because you've only played 3 games. I mean, they're going to throw out their top 3 pitchers and they beat you because they have their top 3 pitchers have great games, where if you'd gotten to game 4 and game 5, you'd have had to see the rest of the pitching staff. It's interesting. The Players Association, not a big fan of what's happened this year. Last year, it kind of went more according to form with the bigger teams winning. This year, all of the 100-win teams were out in the divisional round. So they didn't even get a chance to play in the championship series. And that's your teams that you're talking about. That's the Dodgers and the Braves and those teams that, were dominant. Even the Orioles, Baltimore.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, I don't know. I like baseball. I don't like the current playoff format. It cheapens the 162 game season, right?
Yeah.
If you play 162 games and you win 159 of them, you still have to now win 3 out of 5 against a team that maybe only won 84 games, which is kind of weird to me. Make it a 7-game series. Make them show that they can beat you over the course of a 7-game series. I'm okay with that. Or just make the playoff field smaller. That'll never happen, right?
Right.
Yeah, they're not going to go
That's
back.
definitely not going to happen. You want a bigger playoff field.
Yeah, I don't know if you do.
Not
but
you, but
yeah, they do.
the
More
more
games.
teams that can make the playoff, the more games you can put on TV.
Right. And the commissioner basically said, "Hey, this is great because anything can happen. Anybody can win." I'm like, "Well, that's not the way it's supposed to be. It's not supposed to be anyone can win, because clearly not anyone can win. You have certain standards, right? So those teams that finish last don't get a chance to play. What if you threw one of those guys in? What if one of the worst teams in baseball all season long wins their last 20 straight, still only finishes with 75 wins or whatever? They don't get in, but they're the hottest team in baseball. If you put them in, they could win, but we don't.
If you have a plus 800 win percentage over your final 20 games, you get what's called a Cinderella seed.
An automatic exemption. You're already
and you get to play in a wild card game. We'll take 2 Cinderella seeds from each division, which is just like the last place team in each division. Right. And we make them play each other, and then we let the winner go.
I don't know. I kind of like that. These last 3 games haven't been. The first game Rangers won 6-5, and that was in 11, and that was a good game to watch. But then game 2 was a 9-1 Diamondbacks win. Game 3 was a 3-1 Rangers win, and last night's was 11-7 Rangers. They haven't been uber competitive. Um, so
Kind of snoozers.
it's kind of snoozers, and so that leads a lot to your TV thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, I think people also this time of year, it's hard to now compete with college football, the NBA starting up, all that stuff. I mean, I honestly
Hmm.
think if you're baseball, maybe you need to shorten your season and get your playoffs done in September.
I think you could take 30 game baseball season easy and be done in September.
Yeah,
Like I
by
or
the end
in
of
early
September,
September,
or
or preferably let's make it a summer sport and have you play April through August.
it is a summer sport, except not everywhere. So
Except that when the most meaningful games come around,
it's
it's
cold.
fall and winter.
Yeah, it's cold when the most meaningful games happen, or
If you're
or
playing
at
the
the beginning.
Rockies in October, then
Yeah,
it's
you never know what you're
it's
gonna get.
30 degrees outside. So
Yeah,
much for summer ball.
yeah. We might have a snow delay. Just hold on to that.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. Anyway, all right. Well, game 5 tonight. I'm gonna start here shortly in about 15, 20 minutes. It's on Fox tonight. Not really competing with anything. There's nothing else really on. I mean, there's NBA on, there's
Right.
NHL on, but I mean, they don't have to compete against a football game, so maybe they'll get a better. They will get more people tuned in tonight to see if the Rangers clinch. I'm sure they will.
Right.
But that'd be the only reason. Anyway, if Game 6 is necessary, it will be on Friday, and Game 7 would be Saturday. All those on Fox. Let's talk about the NBA real quick because we can, and this is what we do. I just can't get it. There it goes. Maybe it's gonna go. I don't know if it's gonna go. Technical difficulties, man. They're everywhere. Let's talk about the Portland Trailblazers, who are off to a what's the word I'm looking for? Shaky start. They're 1-3.
Yeah.
They did get
It's
their
too early to
they did get their
to know.
their first win against Toronto on the road after getting blown out by Philadelphia. They lost by 30 something to Philly, right? Um,
They
they're
should.
they're playing well. Okay, they're playing in Detroit tonight, right now. Second quarter, about 9 minutes left. Pistons lead 40-34. It's a different team. It's a young team. I expect they're going to lose a lot of basketball games. Um, they just aren't quite. They're missing something still, and that is what it is. Is it's a premier scorer. It's a guy that can come out and be your lead guy. That's what they're missing because
Right.
that takes a lot of pressure off the rest of the team, right? Or frees them up because they're all focusing on him. But they don't have that, so yeah, that makes it really hard. But anyway, it's early. Yeah, we got a long ways to go. They played 4 games. This is 5 tonight, which means 77 left. That's all.
Right.
Um, 77 games is a lot of games. Um, let's talk about now the team. So, and by that same token, the team that Toronto they beat and got their first win. Toronto is up on Milwaukee by 21 in the second quarter. By the way, speaking of former Blazers, and we weren't, but we are now. So I like that segue. James Harden got traded because he wanted to, and said at some point in time that Daryl Morey was a liar, the owner of
Hmm.
the Sixers, and that he wouldn't be a part of any organization that he was a part of. So he hasn't played yet this season,
Right.
and was traded to the Clippers for about 10 guys. It wasn't quite that many, but close enough. Where
Felt
he's
like a lot. Yeah.
where he's reunited with Russell Westbrook, which is interesting, I find. Right.
Hmm.
This will be James Harden's 5th team that he's played for. This is year 15 or 16. I can't remember. Harden's one of the best scorers in NBA history, just in general. One of the best offensive players. Also a good defensive player. You don't really realize it, but he is. And
He's got weight and size.
yeah,
Yeah, he's
yeah,
not
he's
bad.
he's solid. But it'll be interesting to see if that helps the Clippers out at all. He is not playing tonight's game against the Lakers, and then he is not playing the next game for the Clippers either. I don't understand why he's sitting out so long, but maybe he's got to get back in playing shape because he's been sitting on the Philly bench, not doing anything. I don't know. But the Clippers are 3-1 already this year, so
Yeah.
they play the Lakers tonight at 7 o'clock. That's on ESPN. Your thoughts? Does it make the Clippers a better team, a contender? He's got age on him. He hasn't played more. His average over the last 4 seasons is about 40 games, 41 games a season.
Yeah.
So
That
there's
that
injuries.
sounds about right.
He used to average in the middle part of his career in the heyday, he averaged about 75 games a season. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's taking its
I,
toll clearly.
I think it helps them a little bit. I don't love all of the pieces that they had to give up to get him because I think Marcus Morris and Nick Batum and Robert Covington are great role players.
Yeah,
And I feel like NBA longevity is made up of role players. Also, two first rounders in there.
yeah,
Or sorry, three first rounders in there. That's kind of brutal. Um, but they also get PJ Tucker back, or they get PJ Tucker to come along with James Harden. So it's not terrible. I do think it makes them better. It definitely solidifies the talent around the starting lineup.
yeah.
It doesn't help your bench much.
Not unless you're
If
planning on
anything, it
bringing
kind
them
of
off the
strips.
bench. But
Well, no,
yeah.
what I mean is like you gave up bench players.
Right. No, for sure. You're thinner. For sure.
Yeah, so your team is not as deep. So when Kawhi goes down, which he always does,
He always
and when
does.
Paul George goes down, which he always does,
But that's
you need that depth.
But those four guys should be an amazing lineup, right? Russell Westbrook and James Harden and Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, right?
In theory,
They can't play 48 minutes apiece. I get it.
We've all said this before, where you look at something on paper. Great example. Last year's Bronco team,
Yeah.
should have been an 18-win team on paper preseason.
An 18
with the efficiency of Nathaniel Hackett's offense and Russell Wilson and all these things, and Javonte Williams is healthy.
Nah.
And it didn't even come close. So I've learned that on paper doesn't mean jack dilly.
It's true.
So I don't believe that they're going to be much better because they were still a really good team last year.
Right.
So I don't think this jumps them up a huge amount, but it does make them. I think what you will see is more games where they blow people out,
Right.
less close games. They will still exist, but if they get on a tear with their scores, you're not going to be able to stop them.
I will say this about James Harden. So his career is 24.7 points per game, 7 assists and 5.6 rebounds, 1.5 steals. So he does a little bit of everything for you. He has become a better passer as he's gotten older. If you look at his,
he doesn't want to run as far.
If you look at his first 10, 11 seasons, his average assists per game were somewhere in the ballpark of 6.5, 7, might even be 7.5. The last 5 years, he's averaged over 10 assists, or last 3 years, he's averaged 4 years. Sorry, he's averaged over 10 assists a game.
I see what you're saying
Yeah.
here. I'm looking at it too.
And
From
more
9 to 20,
more rebounds.
He had one big season.
More assists, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, he's gotten better at doing other things, not necessarily having to score as much. But also that's because Joel Embiid does all the scoring in 76ers, right? So, but this is his fourth team in 4 years, by the way.
Yeah,
that's tough.
It's
I'm sorry.
crazy.
That seems weird,
and,
right?
and it's ways that he has pushed himself. It's not like he's been bounced because he's bad from any of these teams. He has asked to go to other places. So he asked to go to Brooklyn, and then he asked to go to Philly, and now he's asking to go. Well, now he's going to the Clippers. He asked to leave. Anyway. So yeah, it's interesting.
I guess officially it's his fourth team in 3 years. He played 2021 he played for the Rockets for 8 games, and then the Nets 36 games. And then in 21-22 he played for the Nets for 44 games, and then the 76ers for 21 games. That's 2 years, right? This year he's played last year he played 58 games. Oh, it'd be 4 years, yeah. And then this year he hasn't played any games. But he's going to another team. I'm like, geez, dude.
I will say, he definitely had that stretch where he was averaging 30 points per game.
Yeah.
While also averaging 8.7, 9.7, and 10.2 free throws per game.
Yeah.
I think that's a huge one right there.
Yeah, well, he used to get the line every time.
Yeah, they've knocked that off.
Yeah.
And it directly reflects
his
score.
He was the master at stopping in front of you or jumping into you.
Now Luka Doncic is that guy.
Yeah, I always hated that. I'm like, come on, man, that shouldn't even be a foul. You're initiating the contact, then it's foul.
Yeah, but that's still it's on the refs.
I know
they've got to not call it.
Yeah. Anyway, all right. So there's that. NBA season's long. We'll talk more about it later when football's over. Let me know in January. We'll talk in January when there's something to be said, right? And we know more about 30 something, 40 games in. NHL real quick, just because we can, and that's what we do. But the Kraken are off and running, if you want to call it that. The Kraken played Monday night and got a win 4-3 over the Lightning. It was their first ever win over the Lightning, the team's first ever win over the Lightning, in overtime. And I'm going to tell you something. What I don't like. Let me just tell you what I don't like. I don't like overtime. The way that the record is reflected in the NHL standings now. It is wins, losses, and overtime losses, and I don't like that because they list it as a dash like it's a tie. It's three. The
Right.
Kraken are 3-5-2. No, they're 3-7. They've only won 3 out of their 10 games, but 2 of those were
Right.
overtime losses. They are 3-7. It just looks better on paper somehow when you
But
do it this
do
way. And
you
I don't
agree
like
with
it.
it when soccer does it with ties?
I don't like ties. I think ties are terrible. But
Right.
I don't. I'd rather. I mean, if you're gonna have it dash dash dash, right? Like winner, the wins, losses, and then a third column. It needs to
Right.
be ties because I can't wrap my head around overtime losses. That just drives me nuts. And it doesn't. The Lightning after losing were
Well,
4-5, not
it's
4-2
because
and
you
3.
get a point for them.
I get it, and I understand that.
So
Put it in a
the same
separate
same
column.
way that a tie gets a point in what's it
I
called
I
in soccer,
I,
you get a point for it. So
I
you
understand.
can't put it as a loss, which got you
It is a
nothing.
loss.
Which got you
You lost the
nothing.
game.
It's a loss that got you something.
I get it, and I understand that, but
So it's a loss that you walk away with
in.
points in the standings for.
Here's my problem. Here's the sports world, right? In football, if you're 1-1-1, what's your record? 1 win, 1 loss, 1 tie. In
Right.
soccer, if you're 1-1-1, you're 1 win, 1 loss, 1 tie. In hockey, if you're 1-1-1, you're 1 win and 2 losses.
I get it.
I don't like it.
I get it. You don't like the basic verbiage. No,
It's
you're
terrible.
1 win, you're 1 loss, and you're 1 overtime
You
loss.
2 losses. You lost twice. You lost 2
As a
out
matter
of
of
3
fact,
games.
football's the only one that's the odd man out here because when you tie in football, you don't get anything. But in the other two, you do.
That's true.
Football shouldn't even have ties
No, it shouldn't have ties. They should
because
be.
it doesn't get you anything to have a tie. Whereas
We've-
in hockey, you can go to overtime and you get a point. In soccer, you can
But-
tie a game and you get a point.
We know the overtime rules in the NFL are stupid, so we already know
Right.
that. But I mean, yes,
That's true.
Yes, I don't know that you should get a point for tying. I mean, you didn't.
I
do anything.
agree
It was
that
the
it's a
same as yours.
loss, but I don't know when you're looking at the standings, you want to know how many points somebody has.
It's easier
Right,
for
and you-
tallying points.
Absolutely, yeah, because somebody's 20 and 10 and 2. That means that they have 40 and 2.
Right, but why don't
It's
you?
easy.
Why don't you just say in the standings, this team is 4-4, okay? And in the next column, they have 2 overtime losses. Not
Is your gripe that it's not columned, that it's dashed?
Yeah, it's dashed. That's a tie. Those
So
are ties. That
your
third
problem
column's
isn't your
tie.
problem isn't with calling it. Your problem is with formatting. You need to take it up with the makers of Excel,
Right.
or something like that.
No, it's the way that
or
NHL
the-
does it.
Yeah, it's not
but-
a real issue though.
But the Bruins are 8-0-1, which makes them sound undefeated, doesn't it?
I mean, yeah, kind of. I mean,
Yeah.
unless you know hockey, then you know that.
Right.
Yeah, they lost in overtime.
That's my point. When you're swapping back and forth between sports, is what I'm getting at. But I mean, it's just to me, I don't like it. It's
Well,
one of those
I'm
things.
gonna be honest with you here. Soccer fans and hockey fans might be closer linked than hockey fans and football fans.
Yeah, well, probably.
So I think that hockey fans who are soccer fans wouldn't have too much of a problem with the formatting of it. But I could see how like a base football fan or a base baseball fan would be like, "What the hell is that for? What are we
Right.
doing here?"
Right. What are you guys even doing over there?
Wait, can you get a tie in the NBA?
First of all, it's not. No.
I didn't think so. They
Nope.
keep going.
Yeah, they keep going. Yeah. Anyway, I mean, it's. I know. I get it. I know why they do it, but I just don't like it. I don't like the optics of it. It looks terrible,
Right.
Because it doesn't match the other leagues. So if we're gonna have, we need to have a
Well-
professional sports scoring standards council.
You just said it looks terrible.
It looks
doesn't
terrible.
It doesn't look terrible.
It does though.
Your argument is that it's a little confusing because it makes
Well-
it seem like you don't have any losses.
Well, here's my problem with it.
It's not. That doesn't look terrible. It's not like the one is side. Each number is facing a different direction.
Here's my problem.
Visually, it's fine.
But also, here's my problem with it. Why are you getting a point for losing? At least in soccer, you're getting a point for tying. In the NHL, you're getting a point for actually losing the game. Why?
Because the format changes.
I get it. I understand that. But why did they do that?
That's exactly why you're no
Why
longer
would you
playing.
do that?
You're no longer playing 6-on-6 hockey or
It-
5-on-5 hockey. You're
So-
playing 3-on-3 now.
So-
So that's basically a different game.
So here's my problem. Are you ready? Here's my basic problem. If your team goes 41-41, right, and you never go to overtime, right, you have what, 82 points? Is it 2 points for a win in hockey?
2 points for a win. Yeah.
Or is it 3? Is it 2 points?
I think
What's
it's
our
2.
points? 17. Yeah, it's 2 points. So you get 2 points for a win, right? So you get 82 points.
Yeah.
This other team goes 41 and 41, but one of those games is a tie. Guess what? They have one more point than you. Why? They lost the game too, just like you did. They're the same exact record. Why do you
Yeah,
give them a point for going to overtime
but
on something that they should have won in regulation?
they took it. Well, then why couldn't you win one in
You
regulation? You
didn't
got
though, but
41 losses out there.
but you didn't,
Pick your
and
crap
I
up
got
and win a
penalized
goddamn
for it.
game.
And I got
They
penalized
actually
for
kept
it.
it together for a full 3 periods.
That's garbage.
And then
garbage.
collapsed in the 4th period. You couldn't even keep it together for 3. You have no leg to stand on.
Oh, okay. So if
at least they took it to 4. You lost in 3.
If the ref makes a bullshit call late in the 3rd period and awards a penalty shot, and they score to tie, and they score and they win in regulation, the other team,
whole nother territory.
Yeah, see what I'm saying?
When you start getting into referee influence on game, it's a whole nother territory.
Well,
but by that same logic, you can give a bullshit foul that leads to an overtime.
It's true. You're absolutely right.
And you could still lose there
and
or win there.
And it could go in your favor too. I get it.
I'm just saying any negative you can come up with goes both ways.
What I'm saying is that one call could be the difference between you making the playoffs and not. Because, you know what I mean? 1 point could make the difference. And why do we give a point to losers? Hey, if you're not first, you're last, right? Anyway.
Yeah. Again, football fans. Fans weighing on the tally marks in hockey.
If you're not first, you're last. That's all I know. Let's talk about college football. How about them Oregon Ducks? 35-6 winners at Utah, snapping Utah's 18-game home winning streak. And it's the third straight? Is that right? Third straight time Oregon's beat Utah? Is that correct?
That sounds right.
I feel like that's
No,
right.
Third straight time we've beat them?
Is that not right?
Maybe. No. That can't be right because we lost to them twice.
But not
in a row.
Not last year. It was the year before.
Then we would only have beaten them
twice.
Once.
I don't know. I have to look.
Because we didn't play them. Who did we play in the conference?
We beat them last year.
We didn't play in the conference championship game last year, did we?
No, but we beat them last year.
Right. So there's one. But then the year before, they beat us twice.
Is that right? It might be right.
It has to.
All right,
right.
Whatever. I know. It's okay. So fine. So it's the second straight win. But
second straight win.
Back-to-back years. Anyway,
after an awful year.
35-6 was exactly. Oregon scored on its first 3 possessions, 4 short touchdowns, and was well up, and it was pretty much in hand at that point. And you could tell the Oregon defense was just dominant. For whatever reason. I mean, I know the Oregon defense is pretty good, but the Utah offense not being great, and I get it, had 13 first downs. They were 5 of 15 on third down, 241 total yards, 99 on the ground on 36 rushing attempts. Oregon held Utah to 2.8 yards per rush, which is what they needed to do to win this football game, was control the game on the ground. Also didn't help that they threw 2 interceptions.
Right.
Mr. Barnes. Anyway, Oregon just looked good. I mean, yeah, they didn't have 500 yards of offense. Yeah, they didn't score 40 points. I get it. But, they ran for 5 yards a carry. They threw efficiently. I mean, this is still over 70-something% for Bo Nix, 24 of 31, 248, 2 touchdowns. He still has the highest touchdown to interception ratio in college football.
Right.
He is super efficient, and their team just looks well-oiled. Maybe that's the way I want to say it. I don't know. You?
No, that's fair.
Okay.
I completely agree. Yeah, no, they look smart. Like, you don't see a lot of players making bad decisions.
Right.
Not a lot of them. Tackles look clean.
Yeah.
Defending edges looks clean. It just all looks very polished. And even again, the game that we lost against Washington, it still looked like our biggest problem in that game was like coaching decisions.
Yeah, that's what lost the football game.
Like, looking at the players and the actions that they're making on the field, like, you're not really upset by anything you're seeing.
And
except our kicker.
Well, and I'm gonna say, okay, don't get me started on kickers. And I'm gonna say this: Oregon did not go for it on 4th down in this game, which is good.
What?
I know. I think he's probably. I'm afraid that when they're gonna need to go for it on 4th down, he won't, because he doesn't think they're gonna do anything with it.
He just needs to
relax.
Get the tush push.
Oh, right,
going.
For sure, yeah.
Like, quit messing around with these other versions of it. If it's less than 1, we have all the size we need.
What
Let's
did
drop shoulder and put Bo Nix behind somebody, and then put in some tight end to just shove the crap out of him.
what did you think of the uniforms? That uniform combo, the black, white, green.
So my favorite uniform combo of all time is Fighting Ducks 2011
Mm-hmm.
versus Cal, the one
Okay.
where Michael James ripped his elbow clean out of its socket.
Yeah.
Black helmet, black pants, green jerseys. And I love every variation of the black helmets and black pants. So black helmets yellow, black helmets white, black.
Yeah.
It's all looks good.
Okay.
This is one of my favorite uniform combos.
I am a big fan of the yellow jersey with the black.
Yeah,
Just
yellow with the black looks very good.
it just stands out more. But even the apple green, yeah,
Yeah.
with this looks really good too. With the yellow numbers, looks pretty good too.
So do you not like them?
I know I like them. I think it's
Okay.
okay. I'm torn. I almost. I mean, I understand why they have white jerseys because they're the road team, and I get that,
Right.
but it's not always the case. But I mean, I get why they're doing it. I almost kind of like the stormtrooper look, the solid white pants, helmet, shirt
Yeah.
over this.
But
I
it's
mean,
it's an approval process. So
yeah,
you pick your jerseys, you
right.
send them to the other team.
Oh, sure,
Most of the time they don't give a crap, but if they're thinking, "Hey, we want to wear white pants
right,
and we don't want there to be any confusion about, anything, I don't know what there would be, but we don't want there to be any
right,
confusion, then that's their prerogative to decline."
right, sure,
And at the beginning of the year, you submit to the NCAA your standard away uniform. Although I don't even think this is it. Theirs is probably green, white, green is
Yeah.
their standard away,
right,
and that's your default that you have to go to if everything is declined, and that's the one they have to allow.
probably.
But I yeah, so it's tough. Like I don't know what this decision was about, but I liked it. I thought it was pretty slick.
It's not bad. It's not bad.
Not
I'm
bad.
not. I'm not hating
I
it.
will say
just,
I don't like the splash of yellow on Bo Nix's pants.
the swoosh.
The swoosh, make it green. Like
It
just
could
have
be. It should
match.
be green like the rest of it. Yeah.
There's no
Well,
yellow anywhere else. Like let's
right.
just keep it.
Or just change the shirt to yellow like I like. Anyway, right? It wouldn't have really mattered.
By the way, so if you look at his shoulders, do you see the wing pattern in his shoulders?
Yeah.
So I didn't know that existed because I'd been seeing these jerseys up close for months while I was like stocking them on shelves and things like that.
Right.
And one day I'm sitting there in the duck store and I'm looking across the way at it and I go,
Huh.
"Holy crap, those are wings!"
Those are wings. It's funny because not only are they wings, but it also has that hash, that like they had when they first started changing uniforms back in the Joey Harrington days. On the edges,
the
they look.
printing.
Yeah,
like
they
the
look
metal
like
printing.
little ducks too.
They're
sort
little
of.
ducks.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're
So
they're essentially the little triangle looking
Right.
things. But yeah,
but it still kind of looks like those little hashes that they used to have when they first when Oregon
there's
first
a
started.
lot of thought put into their
I'm
uniforms.
sure. There are people way smarter than me that are figuring this out. But
And also, when you look at their numbers, see how it's like, say you can see the line on the inside
Yep.
of like the 0 up
Yep.
top, but you can't really see it on the bottom, or at least it changes color.
Right.
It's because at the top it's dark with those little duck prints around it, and
Right.
those flip to the bottom
right.
where it's light, well, with the duck prints in it and dark around it.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
It's too much. Settle down.
There's so
You're
much
making my
to
head
look
hurt every
at
time I
here.
see them, and I go, "What?"
There's so much to look at.
But yeah, no, they look good. They look
No,
very,
I
very
think they look
complete,
good.
top
Yeah,
to bottom.
that's a good looking football team, and you can see it. It's reflected in the rankings and the college football playoff rankings a little bit, but also in the ESPN. They have that predictor.
Right.
Oregon has a better chance to make the college football playoff than Washington, and I'm like, woo,
yes.
which is hard to say. Only if they make it both to the championship game and Oregon beats them. But
Washington snuck out a
I get
home
it.
win.
you got to be a lot lucky sometimes to win a national championship. You got to be
I
lucky.
agree, but what I mean is like, if Oregon plays to their potential all season, right?
Yeah.
You might sneak by them once, right? It'll
Right.
take something, but you might sneak by them once, but you will not sneak by them twice.
No, yeah, I think you're right. Yeah. Anyway, so also, Bo Nix not sacked in this game. I mean, Bo Nix gets rid of the football fast. I get it. That happens a lot. He is a incredibly quick and accurate thrower, which is going to serve him well in the NFL.
Right.
But the offensive line, which was a question mark really going into the season, right? Because they had to replace 4 guys.
Right.
That was one of those things where you go, are they going to be good enough? Are they going to be? Their pass blocking is amazing. They've been good all season. So It's easier. Like I said, it's easier when a guy gets rid of the ball quick. When you throw a lot of quick screens and short passes, it is easier. But they're not doing that every time.
Right.
So yeah, I like it. Anyway,
But see, the difference I see though is like Tua Tagovailoa has the fastest release time in the NFL,
yeah,
sometimes sub 2 seconds. But I think it's like 2.4 or something like that on average. But it doesn't look like he's making decisions. He's just hucking the ball to where it's supposed to go. That's all done in design.
that's Tyreek Hill.
Well, I mean, it's partially Tyreek Hill, but to anybody,
Yeah,
like
well, that's true.
anytime he gets the ball, if he has to hold on to it for more than 3 seconds, you can see there's kind of a breakdown happening. Like panic and sets in, it gets a little funky. His completion percentage is sub 40% when he holds onto the ball longer than 3 seconds.
Yeah,
Like it's insane. It becomes very obvious that this is designed for him.
right,
Don't think, do the thing.
right. You know,
Right. Bo Nix has a longer time at, he's one of the sixth, I think he said sixth fastest in college football. But you can still see that there's processing points consistently throughout the game where things don't work and he's got to figure out a way. He's making nothing but good decisions.
yeah, they're really good. Bucky Irving, 83 yards rushing and a touchdown. He also had 36 yards receiving. He did have a fumble, but I'm going to give him a free pass because if you watch that game and you watch the fumble, he got hit in the helmet. He got hit
Oh,
helmet
yeah.
to
I
helmet.
saw it too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Popped him.
And I was like, whoa, why is that not a penalty? Well, I mean, you know, he's a rusher. He's not a protected guy, but you still can't hit a guy in the helmet with your helmet.
It's still targeting.
It's still
right?
targeting, yeah. And that caused him to bobble it momentarily, and the other guy ripped it away.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was like not really a fumble more than it was, oh my God, I got hit in the head and I lost momentary consciousness and now I've got it back. That's what it looked like.
Pretty
like,
much what happened.
Holy
Yeah.
moly, that was a hit. Anyway, Oregon's next game, they're playing Cal this weekend.
Sneaky team. Don't get caught.
I get it. California sneaky team, but California is what? 3-5, 1-4 in the conference. I feel comfortable at home playing against Cal. Cal did lose a close one to USC. They did score 40 against Oregon State. And they scored 32 against Washington in a loss, which didn't look great. They were losing pretty much the whole time, but they're capable of beating you if you're not paying attention. So hopefully Oregon will come out and dominate right from the beginning. But anyway, we'll know more.
24.5 point favorite
is a lot. That's a
That's
lot.
That's
a lot of points. And it doesn't matter where you are.
Doesn't happen that often.
Well, you figure what is Oregon averaging per game? What's their offense averaging per game?
30 something, 36, 37.
Okay, so they're averaging 36 a game. You mean the other team's only score 12? I feel like Cal will score more than that, but maybe not. I mean, maybe if the Oregon defense plays like they did against Utah, 2 field goals. That's all they could get. I feel that was pretty good against the top 13 team, and Utah will bounce back and come back. They're not as bad as Oregon made them look. It was just a really good football game.
Yeah.
It scares me when they play this good because I'm like, what'd you save? What's left? You got one for USC coming up in 2 weeks. Anyway, right? Did you save a little?
That's funny. Yeah.
Did you waste it all tonight?
Is there anything still in the bank?
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, we're averaging 45.5.
45. Okay, so the 45-21. Okay, I could get behind that game.
There are only 2 teams averaging more points than us, and that is USC at 45.9 and LSU at 47.4.
Yeah, and USC is giving up 40 something a game. So.
And USC is giving up 40 something a game. That's exactly right.
Oh my gosh. All right, so let's talk about the rest of the Pac-12 that happened this weekend. Stanford and Washington. I'm just going to say this. Washington has been very lucky. They beat Arizona by 7. Now, Arizona's a good football team. Let's not make hold any punches back. Arizona's a good football team. They're
better. Yeah.
They're 3-2 in the Pac-12, and they just beat Oregon State. They lost barely to Washington by 7. They lost to USC in overtime or double overtime? That's a pretty good football team, I think. They're much better than they were at the beginning of the season. So I'm glad Oregon doesn't have to play them. But Washington's been a little bit lucky. This time it was Stanford. Stanford had the ball down 35-33 in the fourth and managed to turn it over on downs deep in their territory, which Washington then took in to score to make it the final score 42-33. But it was a close game in the fourth quarter with Stanford. That's the same team. Oregon scored 42 points as well against Stanford, but they only gave up 6. So I mean, this is what I say. Washington's defense doesn't look great necessarily at times, and it's going to bite them at some point. The question is, who will it be?
Yeah.
Yeah, and if their offense doesn't come to play exactly, then they have a good chance of losing because their defense is not great. So
Right.
yeah,
No, yeah.
well,
I completely agree. And it's one of those things where you kind of think about it. So, Arizona, they have 4 one-score losses. 6 points at Mississippi State, 7 points versus Washington, 2 points versus USC, and 1 point versus Stanford.
yeah,
On the flip side of that, you've got Washington, who's got a 3-point win over Oregon, a 8-point win over Arizona State, a 7-point win over Arizona. They're just barely the other side of the spectrum.
right.
One thing happens here or there, and you're talking about a 6, 7, 8 win Arizona team and a 4-win Washington team.
Yeah, and there's
both of these teams are flirting with greatness and being
failure.
mediocre.
Yeah,
Yeah.
There's a fine line in the Pac-12 between college football playoff and middle of the pack, and
Very true.
Oregon State's finding that out. Utah's finding that out. Utah really needed Cameron Rising, honestly, this year to have.
What the hell is going on with that situation?
I don't know, but he's just sitting out. I'm assuming that he's just
I
sitting
think
out.
he's done for the
Yeah,
year.
I think you've shelved him because he wants to.
You've
go
got
play
2
NFL.
losses on the season. You've got no playoff hopes.
Yeah, it's done.
It's done for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So Washington 42-33 over Stanford at Stanford. Colorado UCLA was another interesting game to me because it looked close. It was relatively close early. I mean, it was 14-9 at the end of 3. Colorado was in it, but Colorado cannot keep people from their quarterback. They just can't. I mean, it doesn't matter which team it is. UCLA had 6 sacks. Oregon had 6 sacks against him. You get sacked 6 times a game, and you saw him come up limping a couple different times, Shedeur Sanders for Colorado in this game. Yeah. And I'm just like, how long can he take the punishment before he goes down? And then what do you have? Who's the backup?
But the problem is this is not. I mean, their offensive line is not very good. I agree with Deion Sanders. We go out and get some new guys.
Yeah.
Right. I wouldn't say that publicly, but whatever. What's your incentive for your lineman to keep playing hard for you this year if you're just going to replace him?
Right. You can't say that in the middle of the season. Yeah.
You can say that after the season.
Sure.
You can say, I need him to step up. You can challenge them in different ways. But to say, we're going to replace you
but that's what
while you're still in the role.
But that's what he said to everybody at the beginning of the season, right?
No, but that kicked everyone. That got rid of everyone.
I suppose.
And allowed you to develop people that were in. You're in it now. Like, it's happening. And, yeah, it sucks right now. But if you want these linemen to keep working hard for you, I mean, if you're a lineman for Colorado, why don't you just enter the transfer portal right now and leave him with no depth?
I suppose you should,
because,
and you probably
because
could.
there's no freaking point. He's going to replace you.
Yeah, for
he
sure.
already said so to the world. And if we know anything, Deion Sanders is a man of his word. So, that's my point. But beyond that, so that offensive line is bad. Shedeur Sanders holds the ball too.
He does. He does
so often. He gets, I would say, of his 6 sacks, 7 sacks a game, 2.5 to 3 of them are his own damn fault.
It's true.
Because that little underneath route that he needs to be successful is covered, and his brain goes into schism mode,
it's true.
And he can't get away.
Yeah,
he had a 38.2 QBR in this game. He was hot garbage. He couldn't complete half his passes.
But we saw that early. We saw that early in the first.
I saw it in
week
game
2,
1.
Week 2, yeah. Week 2, week 3. By that point, you go against Colorado State. You could see that they were getting
tell
to
these
him.
Colorado fans nothing around here,
and he was struggling. He doesn't run the football. He doesn't just pull it down and
he
run.
He has run more the last
but not much.
Like this last game, he was sacked 13 times for -20. So he did not run this game very well, if at all.
13 carries.
or his 13 carries for -20 yards, which means he was sacked
sack
7
yards,
times. That took most of that
huge.
away. But even in the last game before this one against Stanford, was it Stanford? Is that the last one? Yeah. I saw him run the ball quite a few times. Like I saw a 20-yard run, I saw a 15-yard run.
He needs to do it more.
He's starting to do it more,
right.
But he's not that fast.
I get it.
And I think his brain is thinking pass first to a detriment.
Yeah, I think he thinks
he's keeping his head up and downfield, but nothing's there. Your guys are not. They're not a bunch of Tyler Lockett's out there getting open. You need to move.
I think he's been told that you get it to your playmakers. Get it out there. They'll make a play and they'll break it loose. Well, you haven't been able to throw the ball deep because you don't have any time.
Right.
You did it the first couple of games of the season, right? Because you
Yeah,
did have time.
they have a bomb
But
every now and then.
right, every once in a while, but it's
But
still
this is a team that thrives on that boom or bust, right?
UCLA turned the ball over 4 times in this game. You should have beat them. Their
Yeah.
UCLA was not world beaters in this game. They did not look great. And I'm going to tell you this right off the bat: the pale gold pants with no yellow or gold on the shirt looks terrible. I don't like it. Just go to Ole Miss if that's what you want to wear.
I think everyone didn't like it.
It's
Yeah.
awful. Just
And the pants didn't match the
no, they're
helmet.
pale,
So
pale. The pants are
and
bad.
I think the thing that bugged me the most is that the helmet didn't have any logos on it.
I don't like the fact that the shirt doesn't have the yellow on it like it normally
I
does.
don't mind the shirt not having the yellow if other things are correct.
Or
Like
bright.
if the helmet says UCLA
It's a
or the pants are the right
yeah.
shade. It was a
Well,
combination of everything made it look awful.
it's a pale looking uniform. It just doesn't have any pop to it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Ole Miss's has that the blue. It's the same blue that Ole Miss wears, except
But they
they
wear
have
it with
red.
red.
There's red and
Yeah.
it pops.
Yeah,
this looked terrible.
this is very and it had the old school looking numbers.
Yeah, well, I don't
So
mind
it just
that.
it looked really well. I'm
fact-
saying it added to like that
Yeah.
dated
Yeah, it
look.
looked awful. I mean, this is the fashion portion of the show, but
yeah, Colorado's 4-4, and they're staring down not making a playoff.
and I
They're not
don't-
making a bowl game this year.
and I'm here to tell you they got to play Oregon State at home, Arizona at home, Washington State, and Utah on the road. Which of those 2 games are they going to win?
Uh,
Right. Which they got to
Yeah.
win 2. Let's say
Arizona at home
maybe.
is one of your best bets.
And Washington State on the road? Because
And-
Utah's defense is going to eat him up. They're going to tear him up.
If you can, I was going to say,
Utah's defensive line is
Gosh,
going
yeah.
to tear him up.
I mean, if you can find some magic from an offensive standpoint,
Yeah.
you can threaten any of these teams. But
Oh,
I don't
sure.
think you're going to win a shootout with Washington State.
No.
So I got you out in that one. Arizona's much better, but they're coming to your house. That is your
Yeah.
best bet for a win. And then you just have to hope you put together a magnificent offensive game against Oregon State, who is reeling from a loss.
Maybe. And maybe.
having their hopes dashed on the ear.
Right.
Or Utah, who might be, we don't know yet, maybe not. I don't
Yeah.
think this is the case, but quitting
Last game of the
because
season, you
their
never know,
season's
right?
done. Yeah, right. Like there's no real aspirations. Who's sitting? Who's not?
I'm telling you, they're 5-7 at the end.
Right.
I don't know who they're going to beat. It might be Arizona, it might be Washington State, but and it might be Oregon State. One of those 3 they're going to win. The rest of them they're going to lose. And Utah is going to sack them 100 times. That's what I know.
If Utah is still playing full bore,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
they're playing for pride or whatever they're playing for.
Right.
Yeah, they're gonna tear apart that team.
Right.
Arizona too. Arizona and Oregon State both have big dudes.
Yeah, big
on the D line.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they're going to struggle.
And you know what's going to happen? You're going to hear it on the radio there in Boulder, in Aurora, in everywhere. But you're going to hear, oh, well, we were 5-7. This is way better than last year. Well, if that's your criteria, yeah, come on, man. If that's your criteria, it's way better.
It's such a loser's mentality.
Right. And the question is, how are you going to become 7-5 and become a legitimate factor and become bowl eligible? Right. That's a big step. That's a huge step forward. Because if your offensive line doesn't get fixed between now and next year, this same thing is going to happen. These are big boys playing football. Yeah, you beat Nebraska and you beat Colorado State barely, right? Those are not top tier level teams. And TCU is not a top tier level team. You beat them at the beginning of the season. Yeah, they were ranked 17th. Oh, defending. They played in the national championship. I get it, but they're now what? TCU is now 4-4, 8th in the Big 12. Yeah. They've lost 3 out of 4.
I think at the end of the year, you're going to look back at Colorado's schedule and say, at end of the year standings, every ranked team you beat, every ranked team you played, you lost to.
It's garbage. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's where it's going to be. I think Oregon State's going to run them. I think Oregon State's going to crush them this weekend.
Yeah, maybe.
I kind of feel like Oregon State's a little pissed about losing last week.
I'm sure they are.
I think they're gonna slam them, and then that will with 3 games left, needing 2 wins, 2 on the road, that's gonna murder your hopes.
I'll tell you what.
Also, we didn't talk about the fact that they got robbed.
Who? Colorado.
Did you not hear about that?
Yeah. Well. Yeah, I did. I bet I don't. Okay.
Like, who do you think is responsible? Not responsible for the robbery. Who do you think? Like, Coach Prime wants the Rose Bowl to reimburse the players.
I don't think it's the Rose Bowl's. I mean, maybe Rose Bowl security. I guess it has to be. Yeah, I mean, you would think so. UCLA would be the ones that would be responsible, right, for hiring.
Well, it depends on who runs the security, right?
Well, that's
if
true.
the Rose Bowl runs security or UCLA hires the security,
right?
So I finally agree with Coach Ryan
Well,
about something.
hold
Like,
on
how
though.
are you going to secure a locker room
I'm just gonna say this. This is gonna sound wrong,
unless whoever stole, I know what you're going to say, but we'll get there. Unless whoever stole it has credentials to be in there,
right?
at which point they did nothing
Then
wrong,
it's on
because that's all they have
Colorado's
to do
fault.
is
Yeah,
come out and say, well, this looks like the guy that stole the stuff, and he's clearly wearing a Colorado sideline tag.
right.
Who'd you give a sideline tag to?
That
But
that's not where I was headed. What I was
I know where you were heading was, if you flash off your jewelry every week, expect to be a soft target.
And if you promote your new fashion line, your new clothing line or whatever in the middle of a football game, guess what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I knew where you were
Oh
going
yeah,
with it. You,
absolutely.
you sound like every other guy
Well,
on
but
the internet right
still, come
now.
on, man. I
You're
mean,
not wrong. I completely agree. I don't
yeah.
think I saw a great comment there that said you need to be a hard target, right? Don't
Yeah,
let people know what's going on with you. Don't let people
correct.
know what's up. Like, being a
But
soft target is easy.
but on
And
the other hand, they should have been protected. Yes. Their stuff
yeah,
should have been safe, right?
yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, yeah, absolutely.
absolutely. And so whoever's responsible for manning that door, that company that employs him is responsible
Right.
for theft. But I don't know that that's necessarily, because that's what's going to happen. They're going to say, well, our stuff was stolen. The Rose Bowl is going to say, well, X company over here, I forget what their name is, Envoy or whatever their name is. Oh, what about you guys? You guys are supposed to be manning the door. And they're going
Right.
to go, well, Bob over here was manning the door.
Right.
And it's going to keep looking down to somebody. But it's not the employee's fault necessarily,
No.
assuming he wasn't in on it. But at the same time, you're right. Just don't make yourself an easy target for people.
I agree. I agree with that.
I mean, all season they've been making a name for themselves in the way that's so easy to make fun of.
USC beat Cal 50-49 in a game that took 33 second half points by USC to win, right? And 4 Cal turnovers. That's the reason they won that football game. It had nothing to do with the fact that USC was a better football team, honestly. Let's be honest. If Cal doesn't turn the ball over 4 times, right, and their defense plays even near what they played in the first half, this is an easy Cal win. But they didn't. So, USC took advantage and they won. Cal had more offensive yards. They had more first downs. They looked like the better football team. Just USC made the plays when they needed to make the plays, and Cal didn't. Again, this is where USC looks very vulnerable. 49 points to Cal is ridiculous. Let's be honest. California scored 58 against North Texas, right? They scored 40 against Oregon State. So they are capable of scoring points, but this is their highest output other than North Texas. 49 against a team that's ranked in the top 25. Come on, USC. Show me something. You got blown out by Notre Dame, right? You lost. I mean, the USC to me is one of those teams that why every year do we say, oh, USC, this is, they're the best team in the Pac-12. Look, they're number 6 to start the season. Why? Why did we think they were number 6? Did we not know their defense was shitty? Is that a thing? Or, we didn't. We
you
just
don't
assumed.
entirely know.
You knew their schedule was tough, right? So why did you give them a pass and go, oh, this is the best team, even though they're going to play? I know they're going to play Oregon, Washington, Notre Dame, right? UCLA, Washington State. They're going to play all these teams. I get it. But we still think, and Utah, who knocked them out of the playoff, we still think they're the best. Oh, come on, man. Was it all Caleb Williams? Was it all hype? Was it all ESPN trying to say, hey,
it's definitely all of those things.
Yeah. Oh, I hate it.
It's frustrating without a doubt, but it's not. But also, are we not happy about it? Right?
Oh, I absolutely love it.
So yay! It's like it's stupid that we had to even listen.
I'm
to
glad
it
they won
just to watch it go down.
And I'm glad they won because it helps Oregon when Oregon beats them.
Right. We don't want them to lose too much right now.
No, if they lost,
they can lose some of the big games, but yeah.
Huge. This game is 50-49. Caleb Williams was 23 of 40, 369, a couple of touchdowns. I don't think that, I just don't think that USC is that team. Yeah, I don't know. They're missing something. It's defense for sure. Their offense is very capable. They didn't show up against Notre Dame with an offense.
Yeah, they didn't.
No, they really didn't.
They left that way back in Cali.
Right, but this is almost 3 losses in a row. This was very close to being a third straight loss. And almost 4 because they beat Arizona 43-41. Right. And then Colorado 48-41. So there's been 5 games in a row that they're 3-2 in that have been decided by
much tighter than they should
be. Much tighter than they should. The three wins were all 2 points, 1 point, and 7 points.
You're supposed to be a stud team blowing
Yeah.
people out
Yep.
right now with the Heisman Trophy
How,
winner and candidate.
it,
Like Caleb Williams is still a Heisman Trophy candidate, and I have no clue how.
if and right, and if they lose, if and when, and I assume it's kind of when, if they lose to Washington this weekend, and I feel like that's a given. I don't feel like that's even
Ooh,
close. Washington's.
I want him to beat Washington.
No, we need Washington to win.
No,
Washington's.
I want him to beat Washington so we can then beat USC.
Yeah, but it's going to
And
cheapen the Pac-12 championship game with Washington.
why would that cheapen it? We still get to play him
We
again.
Yeah, but we want to beat an unbeaten top 4 team in the country.
All right, all right.
Last week
I
of the
just,
season. Last
I want, I
it's
just
the,
want, I root against. Well, I mean,
I
I
know.
root against
I
Washington.
hear you, but it's the last chance you have to impress the voters is championship weekend, right? Because they're going to do on Sunday. They're going to announce who the playoff semifinal people are, right? On Saturday or Friday, I think the Pac-12 game's on Friday. On Friday, you have a chance to go out and beat a top 4 team in the country on championship weekend and show a team that already beat you and show that, hey, we're the better football team.
Right.
And that will ensure that you get in the playoff if you do that. If Washington is ranked 12th because they lose to a mediocre USC team, it's not going to help us. That win looks crappy.
I would tend to agree.
Yeah. I need Washington to beat them. I need Washington to win handily and look like they're clearly the better football team. That's what I'd like to see. Knocks USC completely out of everything because that'll be their second conference loss and they'll be out. And then Oregon dumps them. Yeah, it doesn't help Oregon in that next game, but it will help them with Washington later down the road. So
That's fair.
That's what I would like to see.
I get your strategy.
And I hate. I almost hate USC more than Washington.
Ooh, that's a bold take.
Almost hate USC worse.
There are a lot of reasons to hate USC though, because if you were anybody who was a fan of any of the other teams, like you were, when the Reggie Bush scandal happened,
yeah.
when Pete Carroll was paying players to come and things like.
Yep. Uh-oh.
Chances for the last however many years.
Yeah.
So USC left a real bad taste in everyone's mouth during that time.
Yeah. Yep, for sure.
Although they've taken back all the Reggie Bush stuff now.
I know, right?
But they haven't reinstated his Heisman,
Heisman.
which I don't get. If you're gonna walk back the punishments and
right.
walk back the
give him his
discipline,
Heisman back,
even if it isn't, give him his Heisman back.
Yeah.
What's the point now?
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And besides, when anybody asks me who was the Heisman Trophy winner in whatever year, it's still Reggie Bush. This is what you say.
Right?
You know who won it, because even if his family did have awesome cars and a sweet ass house, he still had to put pads down on people and truck dudes.
I suppose, but he also got his own golf cart to drive him there. So
it's an on-field award.
I suppose. Yeah. He was, and you could see he's like a video game when he was playing. I mean,
so good. His highlights are incredible.
Yeah, it's dumb good. Yeah, I mean, I get it. I understand why the sanctions and the whatnot, but he was still clearly a better football player than 99% of the rest of the football players. So USC wins. I mean, okay, but who really cares? Oregon State. What do we say about Oregon State? Oregon State dropped one to Arizona, and Arizona's pretty good. I mean,
yeah.
This is not. It was a 34. It was 27-24. It was the final score at Arizona. Both teams saving all of their points for the fourth quarter. By the way, 14 each in the fourth quarter. Sorry, and it made it a really good game to watch at the end. But Oregon State had their chances to play defense and make stops, and they didn't. I think that was the bottom line. I still don't think Uwangalele is your guy. I get it. He had 218 yards and 2 touchdowns, 16 of 30, like 55% completion. Right?
Yeah.
When the other guy is throwing 25 of 32 for 275 and 3, that's really hard to beat. Arizona held Martinez to 87 yards rushing on 14 carries, which is still 5.5, but he's not killing you. You know what I mean?
Right.
It was, and then of course, halfway through the fourth quarter, down 17-13, they managed to get a 40-yard touchdown pass and then a 3-yard touchdown pass, back-to-back. Well, not quite back-to-back positions, but close. Anyway, to take the lead and kind of just seal it away. Arizona's a good football team. They're not great.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they're great. Oregon State didn't turn the ball over and still lost. They had more yards and still lost. Time of possession was almost even. They still lost. Arizona made the plays they needed to play, and Fafita at quarterback is pretty good. Noah Fafita's, I mean, he's not, I mean, he's good. I mean, let's be honest. He's not great. He's good, right?
But he's young, and
Oh
you
yeah,
see the potential.
sure, yeah. Oh, but he does make mistakes, but he's there. He's definitely capable of doing what they need him to do to win football games, and you've seen it against
Yeah.
USC, against Washington, um, against Oregon State, and the clubbing they put down on Washington State last week or 2 weeks ago. Holy moly, um, that was really really weird. But he was 34 of 43 for 342 yards in that game against Washington State.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was crazy good. If they can limit the sacks, limit the people getting, the offensive line is still a question mark, but he's capable, mobile enough, smart enough, just enough to overcome some of that. If they can limit the sacks, I think that's a very capable football team. They could end up finishing second in the Pac-12 at this point. Not that they will, but they could. Third, probably. Oregon and Washington, they'll probably finish third.
Right.
But anyway, I don't envy anybody who has to play Arizona the rest of the season. So I mean, you're in a bad shape, and that's UCLA, Colorado, Utah, and Arizona State.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are tough games. And UCLA and Utah, the two ranked teams, are at home at Arizona. So, I mean, that's a pretty good football. Anyway, I'd watch out for them next year if they can keep all the players, because in this year,
Well, they're gonna lose DJU.
oh, not Oregon State. I'm talking about Arizona.
Oh no, Arizona's gonna be
Yeah.
fierce next year.
Yeah, Arizona, if they can
If
keep
this
the
trend
players.
continues,
Yeah.
oh my goodness.
Oh yeah.
Sorry,
Watch
I
out.
thought you meant Oregon State. I was like, yeah, they're
DJU's
losing
gone.
some. They're losing some. Oregon State's losing some big pieces next year, and they lost some big pieces this year.
And I think this loss is one of those kind of losses where you just kind of, maybe it hurts them enough that they don't. I mean, you lose all of your desire. You know what I mean? Because now you're out of the conference race, really, at 3-2. You do have to still play Oregon. You do. I mean, there's other games.
You're
but,
gonna have a shot at
I mean, you got a chance, but it's a long shot now at this point.
right.
Yeah. So anyway, I don't know. I Oregon State fans, I mean, don't hate me, but you're at Colorado, which is an unpredictable team.
Right.
Washington at home, that's a loss. And at Oregon, yeah, you're gonna win Stanford. I'll give you that one. Right? You should anyway win Stanford. You should beat Stanford. So let's say you beat Stanford and Colorado, right? You're gonna finish 8-4, guys. That's how you're gonna finish. And 4 losses, 4-4 in the Pac-12. So
Yeah.
5-4, sorry, in the Pac-12. I don't know. That's the best I think you can possibly hope for if you're Oregon State at this point. I don't know. I thought they were better than this. I did. I thought at the beginning of the season, I thought they were going to be better than this. But their quarterback play has not been great. Even those games that they won.
Well, they're not even running the ball as
No.
viciously as they were last year. Like nothing's like they lost two fantastic tight ends in Coletto and Musgrave last year. And they lost 1,000 other pieces on defense. Like it's obvious they're worse this year than they were last year.
And to be fair, they've only lost 2 games by a total of 6 points.
To be fair,
right? 6 points.
Yeah.
Both on the road. So, okay, but still, yeah, like I said, you got to play the number 5 and number 6 team in the country on your last 2 games of the season. That's rough. So, yeah, and then you had Arizona State and Washington State. That was the other Pac-12 game. If you missed it, and probably did because it wasn't on. It was probably on the Pac-12 network. Arizona State with a 38-27 win. It was their first Pac-12 win of the year. Washington State has only won 1 Pac-12 game after being ranked what at the beginning of the season? I don't remember. After they were 4-0 and beat Oregon State.
They gave them a lot of love early, didn't they?
And then they've lost to UCLA, Arizona, Oregon, and Arizona State in a row.
Which I didn't see coming because their offense was stellar.
Yeah, I thought that
all
was
of a sudden it wasn't.
I thought that was a very dangerous team. I mean, I did, but their offense literally 17 against UCLA, 6 against Arizona.
Yeah,
those two.
That was one of those teams that I had scheduled on Oregon's schedule as this is one that'll jump up and bite you.
Oh yeah, Cameron Ward, I thought was one of the most dangerous quarterbacks that I've seen play football, just in general, from what he can do. But their team as a whole just hasn't done it. Anyway, I don't know.
Played down.
Yeah, they played down. So I do like the Arizona State black, by the way.
Yeah, the uniforms are cool. They always have neat uniforms. They're not always the best looking, but they're neat.
Whether it's with the copper or the gold or the
I do
black.
like when they wear the copper helmets.
Yeah, those are pretty cool looking.
Yeah.
The fork is actually a really good logo too. I mean, I'm
Yeah,
not gonna
it's
lie.
not bad.
Yeah, I like Fear the Fork thing. That's fine. Other college football games, Kansas helped sow a little chaos with a 38-33 win over Oklahoma in Lawrence, Kansas. Big game in terms of implications for the college football playoff and the Big 12 championship as well. I'm a big fan of chaos. You know that.
Who isn't,
All
right?
right. I mean, any game that ends with woohoo is like, you go, what just happened? Um, and I like that. This game was one of those games, and I said it on last week's show. Watch out if you're Oklahoma. You got to go to Kansas. Kansas is a pretty good football team. We also had Penn State with a win. I'm only going to cover a few teams. Penn State struggled with Indiana, but they managed to put them away. Penn State's still 7-1, still a factor. They're going to get Michigan coming up here. I don't know if it's next week or the week after. Let me look real quick because I kind of need to know. They play Maryland next week and Michigan at home the week after. So Michigan's schedule is about to get a lot tougher. This is the number 3 team, Michigan. Anyway, we'll talk about them in a minute. Feel free if you want to weigh in. You're more than welcome to.
Oh, sure.
Okay, Georgia Tech with a win over North Carolina, knocking them out of the ranks of the rankings, right? With a 46-42.
North Carolina's underperforming this year as well.
Georgia Tech scored no points in the first and third quarter. No points in either of those quarters. 46 for the game, 24 in the second, 22 in the fourth to win this football game. I don't know that I've ever seen that. I'm just going to
say. You know what they say? It's not about how you start. It's about how you finish.
I don't know that I've ever seen a team not score in the first and third quarters and win a football game with 46 points.
Did they have a lot of possessions in those quarters? Because that's the only way I could see that happening is if you only had one possession in the first quarter and one possession in the third quarter, but the other ones just happen to be turnover prone or whatever. That's the only way I could see you typically coming away with a 0 quarter.
So Georgia Tech had 3 possessions in the first quarter: a punt, a turnover on downs, and a turnover on downs.
Oh, they struggled.
In the second quarter, they had touchdown, 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 field goal. Right? In the third quarter, they had interception, punt, right? Those are only 2 possessions in the third quarter because North Carolina held it for much of the quarter.
Right.
And then they had touchdown, touchdown, touchdown. And then an end of game where they ran out the clock.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's just weird. It's like 2 different. We can't play in the odd number quarters. Sorry. But yeah, 46-42 win, and those talk of Drake May being a Heisman Trophy guy, and he still had a pretty decent game, honestly. But their team is just not playing.
Unless your numbers are out of this world, you have to win.
Yeah, Georgia Tech is now ahead of you in the ACC standings. I don't know how to explain that to anybody. But Duke got shut out by Louisville, right? Duke, I thought, and of course now this is Duke without their quarterback, right? He got hurt. He's threw for 121 yards and an interception in this game before he got hurt, and he's I think done. I'm not sure he's done for the year, but he got hurt pretty good. I don't know. Duke was one of those teams I thought, man, they got an outside shot. They've lost 3 out of the last 4. All to ranked teams, I'll give them that. And they don't play a ranked team the rest of the season, so there's a chance they end with 2 losses. But the ACC is kind of a mess. I don't necessarily think anybody in the ACC is very good. Just call me wrong. Kentucky, Tennessee was a visually good football game.
It's a fun game to look at. Yeah.
Yeah, because of the blue of Kentucky and the orange of Tennessee makes it really good. Tennessee wins at Kentucky 33-27. I wasn't impressed by Tennessee. I wasn't impressed by Kentucky either. Don't get me wrong, but they did enough to win, right? And on the road in a conference game, that's what you got to do. Kentucky's not a bad football team by any stretch. Tennessee may still be a little overrated. We're going to find out because they're going to play some other teams here in a little bit. They've got UConn this week in a what's going to be a blowout, but then they play at Missouri and Georgia at home. Those are going to be rough. So I know they're going to beat UConn. I know they're going to beat Vanderbilt at the end of the season. Those other 2 games are going to be difficult. So if you're a Tennessee fan, you're looking at 8-4 again. Sorry, orange teams. Oregon State, Tennessee. 8-4 is about as good as you can hope for. But it started out so promising, Anyway. But they're losing to the same teams. That's the problem I have with Tennessee. They lost to Florida. They lost to Alabama. They're going to lose to Georgia. right? They lose
Yeah.
to the exact same teams every year. You got to beat one of those teams to
Well,
become one
hopefully
of
for the
those
sake
teams.
of fun, they go out and beat Georgia.
That would be good for chaos. I would enjoy that.
Yeah.
We also had, that's it. That's all I really had on there. For
Those are all the big
Those are
games.
all the big games. Everything else was either a blowout, and we didn't really care. Texas beat BYU. Nobody cared. Florida State crushed Wake Forest. Nobody cared. Ohio State struggled a little bit with Wisconsin, but not really. Wisconsin couldn't do anything offensively, and Marvin Harrison is the only reason Ohio State's any good. I'm going to
Yeah.
say that right now. He's the only reason they're any good.
Yeah.
He's
carrying them.
I want to know how long before one of those teams takes a cheap shot at Marvin Harrison, takes him out, and we'll see how good Ohio State is. Just saying.
Yeah, man.
If you're gonna beat
That's
him,
not gonna happen.
if you're gonna find a way to beat him, that's how you do it. Take him out.
The problem is that's not of a starting Power 5 football player. It's not your typical MO to hurt people.
Oh, I know, I get it.
Because these are your teammates at the next level.
I hear you.
So
Travion Henderson did rush for 162 yards on 24 carries. So they ran the ball effectively, but when you can throw the ball to Marvin Harrison and he takes two players downfield with him, it makes it a lot easier to run the football.
Right.
McCord at quarterback, they need a different quarterback if they want to be competitive, I think, in the playoff level. 226 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. I don't think he's the guy. Without Marvin Harrison, McCord would be a Division III quarterback.
Right.
Just saying. There's got to be someone better in a transfer portal next year, right? But
in theory.
Because Marvin Harrison, 6 catches, 123 yards, 2 touchdowns. I mean, 20 yards a catch. Dude, they're really good. He's really good. All right, that's all I really had. So let's talk about college football playoffs, shall we? Because the playoff rankings came out on Tuesday. And Ohio State is number 1 somehow. I haven't figured that one out. Georgia's 2, Michigan's 3, Florida State. And I heard the guy from the college football playoff. What's his name? I heard him talk about why Ohio State was number 1. And they say the same thing every year. Every time they come on, well, first rankings, body of work, blah, blah, blah. We just think they've got to top this defense and a top this off. I get it. Eye test-wise, Ohio State is not the best team on this board.
Not even close.
Not even close. And I'm not sure it's Georgia.
It might be Michigan.
It might be Michigan.
But when you go on strength of schedule, they start falling down way.
Right. Yeah, schedule.
So Florida State has played some decent teams.
But not
more
great.
Than Ohio. Yeah.
Yeah. Washington
has looked pretty good.
Washington might have your best strength of schedule, but their performance hasn't been as good.
They haven't been playing well.
Right.
Yeah.
So
and then of course Oregon looks great, but they lost a game.
Right.
So they're first out on the list.
First losers. That's right.
Yeah. Two of those teams got to play each other. So
yeah. So Georgia,
one will be out of the top, and then 2 of the 5 and 6 have to play each other. So
but here's the question: will they? If Ohio State and Michigan play to a 21-20 game, will they drop one of them out of the top 4?
Yes. No. Yes, they will. They will. It's temporary, but they will.
You think so?
But it depends on whatever else happens that week. It's not that simple to just say, will they do it?
Okay, here's my question.
Probably,
let's assume this.
Will it stick?
Let's assume that Ohio State and Michigan play to a normal Big Ten game, and it's 28-27, right? Whoever wins, you pick one. And Washington and Oregon play a normal Pac-12 game, and it's 40-39, right? Mm-hmm. Does the winner of the Pac-12 game automatically jump in the top 4?
It's an easy decision if it's an undefeated Washington team. Yes.
Yeah, that's true. You're right.
It's an easy decision.
That's right. That's true.
If it's Oregon,
do they jump?
If Oregon goes undefeated the rest of the year and their only loss is a road loss to Washington, you have a little more of a debate on your hands. But Oregon's played the tougher schedule without a doubt.
Right. And
so if you go on the strength of schedule, how has the team looked top to bottom? How have their wins looked? How their loss looked?
Right.
Because then you're comparing Michigan lost to Ohio State, tight game. Oregon lost to Washington, tight game.
Ohio State only has 1 game left. They play at Rutgers, Michigan State, Minnesota at home, and at Michigan. They have 1 game left to impress the voters. But that's another thing.
If Ohio State beats Michigan doesn't get an extra game to impress voters.
They don't.
Oregon plays Oregon State. Let's say, because I'm rooting for Oregon here, but Oregon plays Oregon State in that last week, so that's a ranked game, assuming Oregon State continues to do well.
Right.
And then they would play Washington in a title game, 2 ranked games over 2 weeks while you endured 1 loss.
Okay. So let's
That
assume
I think the Pac-12 winner will get in over
here's
Michigan or Ohio State, whichever one loses.
here's my question to you. All right, ready? All
Yeah.
right. Here's our scenario. Michigan or Ohio State, one of them wins, one of them loses. Great. And the other one wins the conference championship game, right? And they
Yeah.
go unbeaten, right? They're going to
Mhm.
be in, right? The winner of the Big Ten
Without a
is
doubt.
in. Okay. Georgia loses to Alabama in the SEC championship game. They
Yeah.
both win out.
This is your scary part.
Florida State is going to win out because the rest of their conference is crap, right?
I'm just holding my hopes out for a random Florida State
So if
brain fart.
If Ohio State is in, Alabama, who they love, beats Georgia on the last
Right.
weekend of the season, and Florida State is unbeaten. Two of your spots are taken, and Alabama would be the third spot. Is the fourth spot at that point Georgia,
I don't think that's
Oregon,
true.
or Michigan, right?
So Alabama, Georgia depends on how that game goes, right? Again, if it's a 33-30 win by Alabama, I don't think Alabama moves into the top 4.
Oh, they do. They're not. They're ESPN.
I'm telling
College
you,
Football
I
Playoff
don't.
Committee is not going to let the winner of the SEC championship game not get into the playoff. It
But
is
I also
never
don't
going
think
to happen.
Alabama's going to walk through LSU either. So
They
this
may
doesn't
not,
matter.
and they may not. But I'm just assuming that they run through. That they beat LSU. Alabama's going to move up ahead of Oregon.
By the end of the season, Georgia will be 1.
Right.
Right. If Alabama, but that's where you're going to get to. If Alabama beats Georgia in conference championship week, and Oregon beats Washington in conference championship week,
right,
and Michigan's ass out because they've already lost to Ohio State,
yeah.
I think you're looking at putting Oregon and Alabama in over an undefeated Florida State team.
You almost have to. I think.
I think based on the team, the schedule, what is happening, I think that is what you will do. Because it makes more sense. But I think they're either going to put Georgia or Alabama in, one of the two. I think they're going to put Oregon or Washington in, one of the two, and then Florida State in. And then I think you're going to have some hairiness with some hairiness, yeah, with the other space. So
well, I'll tell you this: Louisville's the other team in this equation. Louisville's 7-1.
Right.
Yeah, they don't have great wins, but they did beat Notre Dame. And they did beat Duke. They got 4 unranked teams to end the season, although they are Virginia, who's played well lately, Miami, and Kentucky, right? So there's 3 of those are okay. But they're probably on the road to the ACC championship game, right, to play Florida State. If they beat Florida State, who's the top 4, Louisville's going to continue to move up as these other teams like Ole Miss lose. Penn State loses, let's say, to Michigan, right? These other teams are going to lose games. Louisville's going to be in the top 10, maybe the top 8 by the end of the season when this game gets played. There's another team you got to worry about. I'm not saying their schedule matches up with Oregon's or Washington's. I'm just saying a win over a team that's in the top 4 on the last week of the season is a big win, no matter what, because it just looks good.
Yeah,
I don't like the playoff committee. There's no good way to say that.
There's nothing wrong with the playoff committee. What's wrong is that you don't have enough spaces for many closely defined teams.
And that's true. What I'm upset about is there's no objective way to put these teams in that should be in. It is all
because
subjective.
There's not enough spaces.
Well, it's still subjective
to rationalize. Realistically, Alabama and Georgia, if Alabama beats Georgia, they should both be in.
What's the qualification?
The only reason why you have to make a decision is either financial or preference or something else or some analytic that's so LeBron stat down here that you can't figure it out. It doesn't make any sense. All that matters is there needs to be more spots. They're being asked to do an impossible job.
I get it, but my point is you don't have an objective. There's no clear-cut qualification that gets you into the college football playoff. Winning your conference? Not necessarily.
Because there's not enough spots.
Being unbeaten? Not necessarily.
If you have 20
none of it
spots,
matters.
you can lay down firm criteria that will always be met effectively.
You could do that now.
But there's 5 Power 5 conferences. If you say conference champions get in, you don't have enough spots.
But if you're conference champion
you
and
have to make a decision.
What I'm saying is if you rank them, conference champion number 1, unbeaten number 2, this one wins over top 10 teams number 3. those are the ranking. That's the qualification to get in. It doesn't have anything to do with we feel this team is better. That should never be the reason your team is in.
You're gonna find an argument
Be-
until
ya.
there's more teams. There's always an argument why the
Right.
current format is incorrect.
Right. And this is the reason why the NCAA basketball tournament is in the same boat. We feel this team is better. Oh, well, that's great. I'm glad you feel that way.
But the
Are
NCAA
they?
basketball tournament's arguing it over
They are.
freaking 60-something seeds.
But they're still seeding the top 4. They are actually determining who's the number 1 seeds and 2 seeds, and those are different. That's a different thing, right? 1, 2, and 3 seed is a big deal. I'm just saying we feel should never have anything to do with rankings. We feel this is the reason. Oh, well, you have no reason to believe that it's actually going to be that way, but we feel like it is.
So what you need is a 30-step program with which to systematically eliminate
40
people. That's called the BCS.
40 steps.
It was a computer program that went through series of checks and balances to find yourself a winner.
That's not necessarily true.
It's literally a computer program. There was no feel involved.
I got it. Hold on, though. There was, because the AP poll was part of that. We feel this team is better. And the computer rankings would have been fine with me if there was one computer rankings. Oh, we averaged the 6 computer models. Whoa, why are there 6 computer models? Why is it different?
Is it better now than it was?
I don't know. It's the same.
I think it is.
It's just a matter of who's 4 and who's 5.
Every year, my team has a better chance to play for a title.
Instead of arguing
because of the system.
Instead of arguing who's 2 and 3, we're arguing who's 4 and 5. That's all, right? It's the same argument. Is this team going to get in the playoff? Well, no, because they're the number 3 team. That's the only the top 2 get in. Oh, well, is this team going to get in the playoff? No, they're the number 5.
And again, that comes exactly back to what I said earlier. Not enough spaces.
I get it, and I understand.
More spaces allows you to be firmer with your selection.
And I'm okay with your 4 spots as long as you can tell me why Florida State is better than Oregon. If you can tell me why they're better, not we feel. If you can tell me why, I need an answer as to why. Not we think they're better. That's not good enough.
If Oregon wins out, it won't matter if Florida State wins out.
It shouldn't, should it?
I don't know. I'm telling you. Okay. I promise you. If Oregon wins out, it won't matter Florida State won out.
Florida State has a gigantic TV base.
They might be in, but Oregon will also be in too. It won't matter.
Don't even tell me that the gigantic TV base and revenue is not going to play a factor.
I did not say that wouldn't.
Florida State has.
I'm telling you right now that if as long as you're not deciding between one and the other, and there's no other way to metric it, Oregon has a better schedule, a stronger team, a better quarterback, a better defense. They've played harder teams. They've done every single thing better.
Except they lost the game.
That won't matter. Yeah. That won't matter unless you want to take all of the actual rationalization of football out of it. And again, I say this all the time. If you forget it's a freaking business, you're not thinking straight.
And I understand that. All I'm saying is that at some point in time, they're going to give you a reason that isn't a real valid reason. Oh,
right, Florida State. Let's not have the argument now. Let's have it at the end of the season when there's actually a debate to have about it.
The problem is what you'll say is what they never say is if Oregon played Florida State's schedule, would they have been unbeaten? If Florida State played Oregon's schedule, would they have still had the same record as Oregon? That's the question I have for you, because that's the only question that matters. Do you think Florida State wins the Pac-12 the way Oregon will win the Pac-12? Do you think Oregon would have won the ACC the way Florida State won the ACC? Or would it be different? That's the question. If you can swap them and go, yeah, Florida State would have breezed through and they wouldn't have lost to Washington, then I'm okay with you putting Florida State 4. If you tell me no, then you got to tell me why Oregon wasn't good enough to beat Florida State or to beat those teams that Florida State beat. They are definitely good enough to beat those teams Florida State beat. Definitely. At this point.
But we're not going to get to see that. And as of right now, the way it stands is that a group of dudes make a decision, which is unfortunate because we don't know exactly how or why they come to the decision they come to.
And women.
But
not just
you
dudes.
Still got to get through 4 more weeks.
I know. It's all irrelevant at this point.
I hear you. When Ohio State loses to Michigan and Florida State loses to Louisville and Washington loses to Oregon and Georgia loses to Alabama, but Alabama lost to LSU, we're not having a conversation because then there is a clear top 4.
I hear you. I get it. I hear what you're saying.
There's all these teams in the top 5, 6, 7, 8. Maybe not 7, but 7 of the teams in the top 8 have a chance to lose. Here's
your color. Here's what's happening this weekend. Here's your colorful. I put some color onto it. I think it looks worse. I think it's harder to follow.
I think it's nicer, but it needs a background of some kind.
It does. It needs like a college football playoff background or something.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe bolder letters or something.
I'll work on it. This is homemade. FYI, I have to type this out every week.
Yeah, those are actually macaroni noodles.
What?
I'm just
Oh,
making. You said it's homemade. I said those are actually macaroni noodles.
it's I mean, yeah, it's one of those kind of glitter. I used glitter. That's just red glitter. Um,
He just wrote the names out in glue and then
and it's
we
funny
just put it on
because
the page.
you don't realize how many teams have red until you start doing this. You don't really.
Every
Some of them are right red,
I
red.
think we looked this up once. Blue
Yeah,
and red are the two most popular colors, and it's by a long shot.
and it's funny because the blue ones are discernibly different, right? Like Ole Miss is blue, Notre Dame's blue, Kansas is blue.
Yeah,
Those are different blues, but the reds are just darker. There's bright red, Oklahoma, Maryland, right? There's bright red,
right.
and then there's everyone else. Texas A&M, Arizona State, Virginia Tech is almost
Just a
USC.
hair this way,
Even
hair that way.
Alabama's red is not red. It's Texas A&M's red. You know what I mean? It's weird. Anyway, I started going through it. I'm going, kind of the same. And it ended up being the same kind of thing with orange. Oklahoma State, Oregon State. Tennessee's is different, but it's not. I mean, it's orange, but I'm limited by the amount of colors on it. Clemson's orange. You know what I mean? Texas is orange, is burnt orange. Anyway, I have a hard time following this because the colors draw my attention. But here's what's happening. Here's what's happening. I might go back to black. Here's what's happening this weekend. Kansas State at Texas. That's a big deal. Kansas State is still locked in first place, right? Tie for the first place in the Big 12. A win over Texas would seal them in a little further, right? And so some more chaos. We're good with that. Notre Dame plays at Clemson. Clemson has literally a chance to knock Notre Dame out of a New Year's Six game. I mean,
That's not bad.
that would be great, right? Utah and Arizona State. Utah's reeling a little. Arizona State is, I don't think that's a matter. Missouri at Georgia is a big game in the SEC, right? Going to go a long ways to determining who the SEC East champion is. And Missouri could sow some chaos too. Florida State's going to play at a Pittsburgh team that lost. They gave it 58 points to Notre Dame last week. Oklahoma at Oklahoma State. Also, two 4-1 teams in the Big 12. Could also go a long ways to determining who plays in the Big 12 championship game. Penn State, be careful of the upset at Maryland. Kansas at Iowa State. Iowa State is also 4-1 in the Big 12. There are 5 4-1 teams in the Big 12.
Wow.
I know, right? Anybody, and Kansas just coming off the win over Oklahoma. So who knows that one, right? Purdue's a giant killer. Watch out, Michigan. Not saying they will, but they are a giant killer. Number 5 Washington at number 20 USC. 4:45 on CBS. Oh, I mean, sorry, on ABC. 4:30 on ABC. That's a huge football game, right? In the Pac-12. And then LSU at Alabama starts at 4:45. Why are they always on at the same damn time? Why are the two biggest games of the day always on at the same time?
Well, for competitive reasons, because the two networks are trying to steal each other's viewers.
I want to watch both those football games, and I had to record one if I want to do that. But by that time, I will have seen the update in the middle of the in-game update. Here's your. Anyway, I'm just saying. Stanford.
You've got to do what I do.
Yeah.
Buy a second TV, a little 32 to 40 inch TV. It costs like $150 at Best Buy, and then you get a Roku and you hook it up to it, and you set that thing on a little platform somewhere in the room. And then you keep your eyes on the main one, whatever game you really want to watch. Then that one's off to the side. And every once in a while, you peek over.
And then 2 upset specials at the end of the night. Oregon State at Colorado, UCLA at Arizona.
Upset specials.
Nice. Upset specials. That's kind of what
that 8 o'clock game time for Oregon State is brutal.
That's pretty late. 8 o'clock at Colorado. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, so those will be good. It'll be a good weekend in college football. It always is. So it'll be more exciting. The picture will become clearer. With the Oklahoma State, Texas, Kansas State. The Big 12 is going to clear itself up a little bit this weekend. The Pac-12 should also, with the Washington USC game, if Washington doesn't come to play, USC is going to score 100 points against them. Just FYI.
It's true.
I mean, you get a shootout with USC. I don't know. That's tough, right? You don't want that. And then the
shootout's kind of 50-50, and Caleb Williams is making more turnovers than Penix is.
And is it LSU's offense or Alabama's defense going to win that football game?
I'm just dying to get another 9-6 underneath my belt.
I don't think that's happening this week. LSU's offense is good.
I still reference that so often because the way that ESPN and CBS and ABC and all the affiliates, the way that they all hyped and pushed that game for a full week,
so big.
Battle for the ages, a clash of titans, and the game was 9-6, and I was like, oh,
right. So we've gone.
It was the most overblown game ever.
We've gone over. I mean, we're like an hour and a half in. We need to wrap up, but we got to talk a little bit about the NFL before we do. Justin Herbert and the Chargers got a win. against the Bears. It was the Bears, let's be honest. So they're 3-4 on the season, a 30-13 win. Herbert did get smacked in the ribs late in this game. And the second half was pretty ugly, but they were already up 24-7. That was kind of an ugly ending to the football game. That nothing really happened, but I still don't like Brandon Staley as a head coach or a play caller. I don't even know if he's calling the plays.
Just kind of uninspiring.
I just don't like it.
Yeah.
I think they could do a lot more with what they have.
I agree.
Yeah, Cowboys over the Rams 43-20. When you just don't know when the Cowboys are going to score 40 points. You don't know. They're 5-2, and I get it. And they look like a good team at times, and then they don't at times. And this has been the knock on the Cowboys since Dak Prescott's been there, is that when you get to playoff time, they don't look like a playoff team. Right. During the season, you're like, oh, yeah, it was great. Vikings managed to win. Kirk Cousins is done for the season, which led to Joshua Dobbs going to Minnesota, which means Arizona is now tanking officially, right?
Right.
Okay. Titans 28. No, sorry. Yeah, that was right. Titans 28-23 over the Falcons in a battle for that AFC South, which, let's be honest, is kind of crappy.
Yeah, it's pretty terrible.
That division's pretty terrible. Well, Jacksonville's going to run away with it. The rest of the teams are kind of meh. So Will Levis, 4 TDs in his NFL debut as the Titans win.
Levis.
1 a quarter, right? He threw 1 each quarter. The Saints beat the Colts 38-27 on the road. Derek Carr and the Saints are kind of hit and miss. They're on again, off again, which it results in a 4-4 record. I mean, it just does. Dolphins beat the Patriots 31-17. I don't think the Patriots are very good. I'm not sold that the Dolphins are even a conference championship kind of team. Right, playoffs they're going to make, but
yeah, they're definitely going to hit the playoffs. But I think they're going to get bounced out a little earlier than they prefer.
The Jets win in overtime over the Giants in a battle at the Meadowlands, 13-10. The Jets defense is good enough to win you any game, but the Giants offense is also crappy. So this one's, but Saquon Barkley ran for 128 yards. But they just didn't. The Giants are terrible offensively. But the Jets defense is really, really good. And I think that if they had a quarterback, because I'm not saying Zach Wilson's terrible, but he's just not a name. You know what I mean? He's not.
It's
that
just not
guy.
it. Yeah.
He can't carry the team if they need to. Anyway, but the Jets are dangerous, so watch out. Jaguars win. They go to 6-2 with a win over the Steelers. The Steelers are still terrible. And Kenny Pickett got hurt. He is going out for a little bit. I think he'll come back, but again, another quarterback injured. The Eagles managed to sneak by the Commanders. They needed 21 fourth quarter points to do it, to be 7-1. The Commanders were good. And then the Commanders started tanking, right? Immediately after this one, who's traded? Chase Young, Montez Sweat.
Yeah,
right?
they bailed on the whole crew.
The whole season's over with now at 3-5. Yeah, they've lost 3 out of the last 4. That's probably why. Panthers.
Yeah, I couldn't believe they did that.
Panthers get their first win of the season, 15-13 over the Texans. Late field goal wins it for the Panthers. Seahawks with a win over the Browns, 24-20. The Seahawks are 5-2. I mean, I can't argue that they're 5-2, but they needed some later heroics, also fourth quarter, to win against the Browns, who have a pretty good defense. The Broncos. Let's talk about your Broncos. 24-9, right?
Let's talk about the Broncos.
Broncos with a 24-9 win over the Chiefs. It's only the Chiefs' second loss, and I don't know. It was the first time the Broncos have beat the Chiefs in I don't know how long. How long has it been?
Let it be known, no one beats the Broncos 16 times or 17 times.
Yeah, you can beat me 16, but the 17th time, no.
Fool me once, shame on me.
And it only took 5 Kansas City turnovers to do it. Just FYI.
Oh, come on.
Throw that out there.
Don't undercut it like that.
5 turnovers.
We caused.
Okay.
We forced a fumble. We picked off Pat Mahomes twice in very pretty fashion.
Yes.
And then, all right, maybe the other 2 you can pin one to a muffed punt.
Yeah.
Like that's his own damn fault.
3 fumbles lost, 2 interceptions.
But I'm going to claim 3 of those as we caused this.
Yeah.
They're out there saying that Pat Mahomes was having we had the flu and things like that. They were giving him all the excuses before the game.
Yeah. Well, he's been partying with Travis and Taylor too much. I think the Russell Wilson was sacked 6 times also in this game, by the way.
He did go down quite a bit.
Yeah. But it was still a good win. A win's a win, and if you get a division win against Kansas City, you're going to take it. It doesn't matter. So that was the first division loss for the Chiefs.
But the important thing is that over the last 3 games, so including 2 games against the Chiefs and Green Bay, we have let up 19, 17, and 9 points.
It's
And
true.
in the first game of the season, we only let up 17. We did have a stretch there where we let up 70. Don't want to talk about it for too long. We let up 35, 28, and 31 of the other ones. But over the last 3 weeks, we've gotten defensive players healthy, and it's become very obvious. Like the scores are dropping dramatically. And if Russ can just put it together a little bit for a little bit of time, if this is Sean Payton's master plan, I'm in. We're getting there.
It's funny how the averages, when you look at the averages, like what your team gives up or scores,
Right.
how that gets skewed so fast. You're right. Over the last 3 games, right? You're 45 points.
Crushing it.
The Broncos have given up 45 points in the last 3 games. That's 15 points a game. That's great, right?
Don't do what you're about to do.
Prior
Don't
to
do
that,
it. You don't have to do this.
I know, right? Prior to that is about 40, right? So just because the one game skewed everything. So
I'm just saying,
it was a
Russell
bad
Wilson
game.
has the fourth highest rating
Yeah.
this year. Russell Wilson is not sitting all that high in the QBR, which is much more cumulative. He's 21st, but these are all improvements from last year.
Sure.
And when our defense is healthy, man, do we play much better.
Russell doesn't throw the ball. Doesn't throw that many interceptions. I like that. That's
This not as many as last year.
No,
anyways.
he's 16 and 4, right? 16 touchdowns, 4 picks, and I find that better. It's refreshing. His completion percentage is 66% this year. That's kind of I guess par for the course for him.
Yeah.
But it's just the Broncos are still a player or two away from being that really super competitive team.
But looking down the stretch of their season, right?
Okay.
Looking at who's left on the schedule.
I'm looking at it right now.
You have a trip to Buffalo, which isn't great, but if you can do what you just did to the Chiefs,
Okay.
and we know cold weather isn't a problem,
Sure.
maybe
you
you
can.
can make some magic happen. But I'm going
Right.
to say you probably can't. Minnesota is having trouble figuring out, a quarterback situation right now, so I think you can win that game at home. And then you get Cleveland at home, who also is having trouble figuring out a quarterback situation at the moment.
Yeah,
Like,
but their
you
defense
could pick
is good.
up 2 wins in your next 3 games.
You could, but then you're also going to have Chargers, Lions, Chargers in the last 6.
Okay, you know what?
I'm just saying, there's some stuff, and you got to play at the Raiders to end the season.
I'm for it because we've split with the Raiders every year for the past 15 years or something like that. Even when Peyton Manning was quarterback, we would split with the Raiders every year.
And you've already got the loss, so there's.
And we've already got the loss. I mean, the win's coming, baby.
And what if
at Detroit will be tough though.
It will. The Niners are looking very human at the moment.
That's tough.
Yeah, I don't even understand what's going on with the Niners. It's not just Brock Purdy. Their team looks disoriented, disjointed. There's something wrong. They aren't acting like a machine like they were at the beginning of the season offensively. Still the same players, and there's not been any gigantic injuries, but.
Well, they've played so that one game, their first loss, they had a couple big injuries. So they've lost 3 in a row.
Against the Browns, yeah.
Against the Browns, that's when they lost.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, running back went out for a little bit. Deebo Samuel went out in that game. Brock Purdy went out in that game at one point.
Yeah.
They had some injuries in that one. But these are all, 3 points versus Cleveland, 3 points versus Minnesota. Obviously, the Cincy game was a little more out of hand. But, of course, of those 3, that's the best offense you could probably face. Right. And 2 of those were on the road.
Well, going through the first 5 games, the lowest amount they'd scored was 30. Mm-hmm. The last 3 games, it's 17 apiece. Each game, 17
each piece.
So their offense is taking a dive. You can't hang it all necessarily on Brock Purdy, and some of it's offensive line issues too. But I still think those are the teams that you beat, right?
Right.
Were not all that great. The Cardinals, the Giants, the Steelers.
Yeah, a little bit of that goes on.
Right. And the teams that you lost to also weren't all that great. I'll give you a pass on the Bengals. They're playing very well right now.
You can give them a pass on Minnesota too, because that's one of those teams that
it was Kirk Cousins being good.
That every year should be better than they are at any given point. You don't know why.
That's true. The schedule from here on out gets tougher. They play the next 3 of the next 4 games are at Jacksonville, at Seattle, and at Philadelphia.
Yeah, that's brutal.
That's going to tell you a lot. And then after at Philadelphia, they play Seattle again. They also have the Ravens on the schedule still at the end of the season.
Yeah, it'll be really important to get healthy because I think they have a bye week this week.
Yes, they don't play
They
this
have a
week. They play
they have a bye week this
Jacksonville
week.
on the
So
12th.
getting
Yeah.
healthy this week, getting Debo Samuel back, getting
Does
Dre Greenlaw fully healthy, things like that will be huge going into that tough like five
does
game stretch.
does the pickup of Chase Young to add
What
to
the hell, man? How do you have cap space for
they
this?
don't. They don't
It's
have any
so
cap space. They're
stupid.
way over the cap. That's not even a
And if
thing.
you can do this, why are the Broncos not going out and taking somebody like
Well,
that?
my thought is, why aren't you getting everybody? If you're just going to
Right.
pay for it
Well, I
and win
mean,
the
it seems
title,
kind of
just go
like
get
they
them
are,
all.
right?
Well, I mean, kind of.
They have probably 4 or 5 of the best defensive players
Sure.
in the country
Yeah.
on their squad.
I
It's kind of incredible.
it's interesting to me that now Bosa and Chase Young, both number 2 overall picks in
Mm,
19 and 20, right? Both
yeah.
had injuries on their second year that kept them out the whole season. Um, they're now playing on, well, basically either end of the line now for for the Niners, teammates in college. Now going to be teammates for the Niners. That's going to be rough because Chase Young had 5 sacks in 7 games. So he's not exactly chopped liver. And if you put him on the other side where you can't double team Bosa, that's going to be a lot of pressure. Or
Yeah.
put them both on the same side. Then what? Right? I mean, I
Yeah.
don't know. Anyway,
In theory, they should be unstoppable.
it's a big pickup. I just don't know how it's going to all play out. But I mean, it's to me that was the biggest move of the moves that I saw. Montez Sweat, notwithstanding, he's still pending a physical.
Right.
But and Joshua Dobbs is one of those. I think that Arizona said, well, Kyler Murray's coming back. We're going to put him in the game, whether we win or not. It's irrelevant because we really don't care. That's kind of the move I thought that they went with. Um, and I feel like that's a disservice to Dobbs. I know they were only 1-7. I get it. They haven't been great, but I feel like you brought him in to be your quarterback. I guess if you just brought him in to be the quarterback when Kyler Murray was out and he's back, then I guess you're done with him. Yeah, right.
Yeah. In theory.
I don't know. They do a lot of that. So dropping people. Anyway, it's interesting. The Niners, jury's still out. I thought they were the best team in football when we started the season. They looked like it. Now
I still think they have the best roster in football,
yeah. All right.
but
Yeah.
it's tough.
Chase Young got his first win, right? For Carolina.
That's right.
Yeah. I mean, that was a big deal. I mean, it's not that big a deal, but Carolina
Wait,
with
Chase
the win.
Young, Bryce Young.
Bryce, that's what I meant. I just talked about Chase Young. Bryce Young got his first win over C.J. Stroud, right? So both teams are 1 in something. So I mean, neither team is any good. But I thought C.J. Stroud had been playing very well for Houston at this point. They're just not a very good football team.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, and then of course you got the Chase Young trade, you got the Montez Sweat thing, and then you got Joshua Dobbs, the man with no eyebrows, moving to his 4th team already or 5th. I want to say it's his 5th football team.
Well, he was at the Steelers until he went to Arizona.
Was he though? But he was somewhere before that.
I thought he got drafted by the Steelers.
Yeah, I feel like he. So he's playing. Let's go look. So now he's going to play for Minnesota, right?
Right. That should be number 3. Yeah, drafted by the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2017.
Is that right?
Yeah. Oh, he left the Steelers at one point.
Yeah.
The It was the
Yeah.
Steelers,
Browns.
Jacksonville,
and then the Browns.
Detroit,
This is
Titans,
this is-
Browns, Cards, and then Vikings.
This is his 8th team, or 7th.
But
team.
hold on now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of these, or sorry, 4 of these teams were over the course of a year and a half.
Okay.
Which means it's just like a lot of preseason bouncing around.
I know, and I get it. He's only been in the league, but he didn't even play in 2019, right? So he played in
Right.
2018 for Pittsburgh, 2020 for Pittsburgh.
Was traded to the Jaguars.
Didn't play in
and then-
2021 either. So, yeah, this is his 5th team, but
He was waived on September 5th by the Jaguars, and on September 6th he was picked up by the Steelers again.
Yeah.
And then placed on injury reserve the next year. So he hasn't played for most of these teams. He's only played for the Steelers and the Cardinals, and now he's going to play for the Vikings.
And I'm just going to say he has almost as many yards passing as Russell Wilson. That's FYI. And 1 less touchdown pass. This season, he has 1,569 passing yards.
Oh, this season. I was like,
this season, not career.
I thought you meant career, and I was like,
No.
excuse
No,
me.
but this year he has almost as many passing yards and 1 less touchdown pass. Than
Yeah, they're
Russell
airing it out down there.
Wilson. Yeah, they're throwing. Well, I mean, he's not great at it. They're only 5.9 yards per attempt. But I mean, he's also not as accurate a thrower. But they are throwing it a bunch. So
Sure.
yeah, it makes his rating high and his QBR kind of minimal. But anyway, I don't know. Joshua Dobbs now going to be a Minnesota Viking. How long? I don't know. They haven't even announced him. They didn't say he was going to be the starter. They just said he was coming in, and we'll see. We'll evaluate it. I get it. Don't want to commit to anything because he may not be even as good as your backup guy when he gets there. So why'd you trade for him? Is my question. I guess if he's not as good as the guy you got, why did you make the move? Because we needed another quarterback, regardless of how good he is. It sounds weird, right, when you say it that way, but I don't know. So they do have Sean Mannion on the roster still, Minnesota.
Right.
Nick Mullins, right?
They got people.
Jaron Hall, BYU. Anyway, yeah, they got a lot of quarterbacks on their roster. But anyway, that's kind of all I really had in terms of what we had to talk about today.
Well, I got a trivia question for you.
All right, let's do the trivia question because I don't have one. So,
what were the 3 teams that Bob Knight head coached?
So I know Indiana.
Yep.
And I know Texas Tech because that's where he ended.
There's one before him.
Before Texas Tech or before Indiana?
For Indiana.
God, I don't know if he ever became the head coach at Army, and I don't think he did. I feel like it was somewhere else. Oh man, I want to pull this up. I so badly want to just look this up.
It's hard to avoid.
I don't know the third team.
It's Army.
It is Army. Oh,
you were there. Yeah, he was the head
right.
coach of Army for 2 years before he left to go coach.
I know he was the assistant coach at Army. I just didn't know that he became the head coach, I guess.
Yeah. I thought that was a topical trivia question.
That's a good question. And by the way, a little plug for Dr. Squatch, by the way. Have you seen their Halloween soaps?
Yeah, I have the werewolf one.
You do?
I've been using it for the last week.
Oh, I want the Brick of the Dead.
By the way, that's I have been using Dr. Squatch ever since you guys got it for me for Christmas that one year.
It smells
Please
good.
keep that on the Christmas list.
Okay. They also have a Count Sudzula.
Count Sudzula?
Count Sudzula, by the way. I know, right? There's a headless
the werewolf
rinse,
one at Walmart.
Headless rinse, Brick of the Dead, Count Sudzula, along with the werewolf wash. Yeah. I know, right? And I don't know what any of them smell like. One of them's pumpkin seed oil. One of them, the one you have is a forget-me-not seeds, I guess. And then there's ground vanilla vine in the Brick of the Dead. And I can't tell what the Count Sudzula is.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, it's a good. I have their shampoo and the soap, and it's really good. So
I have their shampoo as well. I like their shampoo. It's pretty good.
Yeah. Anyway, little plug for Justin Herbert's to make him some money.
I tell you what, I want that Herbert. I even though I know it's just the fresh, it's their normal product. They just renamed it.
Yeah.
For him, but I want more of those Herbert fresh ones.
I know. I have one more. So
you have an unopened bar?
I do.
I used mine. I think you gave me 2, and I used them both.
And I used one, and I still have one.
Yeah, that's a good call.
I was
on
not.
to that.
I was not going to open it. I was just going to keep it.
Yeah, it's like a display thing.
Right. So.
Fingers crossed they do another Herbert promotion.
I know, right? He goes in the office. So anyway, there's that. Next week we'll talk more about Formula One briefly because we didn't talk about it this week, but it's all Max Verstappen. So unless something awesome happens in Brazil, we may not, but I mean we'll talk about that. We'll have more college football. I probably should have done a little audio. We'll talk more about college football, and the second college football rankings come out November the 2nd on Tuesday. We'll know more about the top 4. We got a lot of stuff to cover, NFL, all that kind of stuff. We'll talk more about stuff as time is available, but for the most part, it's football right now. Anyway, I want to thank you everybody for listening. This has been a Brain Rock production, a division of Lonely Tree Media. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.